interviewing Kate Miller today. So Joni and Mary, I'm turning the mic over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Hello, Joni.
Hello, Mary. Thanks, Lynn. Hello, Kate. Hello, Rabina.
Hello, Rabina, Mary, Joni, and Lynn.
Hola.
Practicing your Spanish, huh? Hello, Rabina. So we'll start with a prayer. And this is from A Course in Miracles, page 28, the helpful prayer. And so if we just take a moment to release anything that's gone on in our mind or in our life up until this point. And here on the MerJ show, where we take our time and spend attention thinking about what it is to merge with the divine. So we're here quiet within ourselves, looking within. And I'll say these words. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. And so with that idea in mind, we don't have to worry about anything. Everything we say, think, and do in this next hour is divinely guided. And today we have the honor of having an interview with Kate Miller. Joni and I will be interviewing her. We would like to start out by asking you, Kate, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And just a little bit about yourself.
Okay, a little bit about myself. Well, it's been a life's journey of developing my relationship with the divine. I'm remembering as a young child, just a little girl, I was raised Catholic, and I would have these times of being quiet. And it was almost like a transcendent kind of feeling, almost like disappearing, or how I originally would describe it as like melting, but like melting into this larger sense that I didn't really understand. It was like, our relationship with the mystery starts at a very early age. And I think that my journey in my life has been this coming to know myself as well as coming to know God, the divine, being raised as a Catholic, going to Catholic school, Catholic high school, Catholic college, then marrying someone who had been divorced and being excommunicated, and finding my way to God, knowing that it wasn't based on the church, that my relationship with God was my own personal relationship. And I was always a seeker. And then my marriage actually falling apart, not necessarily falling apart because of, but I always desired for us to have a foundation together on our spiritual life, and that wasn't going to happen. And so I continued to pursue my spiritual journey, and that actually got to see a larger wedge between the two of us in that. That wasn't the only thing, but that was a component. I was an addictions counselor. I became a spiritual practitioner. I am a yoga teacher, teaching meditation. So all of those things were not necessarily for me to be something else in the world, but assisted me in knowing myself, and then in the work that I was doing and bringing those different things to what I was doing in my work with opiate addicts, being a spiritual practitioner as well as a yoga teacher, not just their addictions counselor, but that's who that's who they thought I was, just that. And then being able to see them from the place of love and reflecting that love to them, which is the divine, that the divine seeing the divine, this being a divine meeting the divine conversation, and can we be that in all of our interactions? And knowing that that was true in my relationship with my husband Peter, that it was divine meeting the divine. It was divine love coming through Peter, seeing me, and divine love coming through me, seeing him. And that was the truth of our relationship. And so that transcends form and body and life. So, he passed 5 months ago, though I definitely feel him with me always. So that's I guess in a nutshell, me.
Okay, all right. I love it, Kate. Thanks. I have an idea about you. That's really great. I did happen to see your 2 of your 4 sessions with Speakeasy Spiritual Community when you did a series on death, basically death and dying, for the month of January. And along with this video, this interview, we'll post those, because the 2 that I saw, I just I was really blessed by. You helped me round out my thinking about death and dying, where I already had a keen interest. So you say that you are a counselor, a spiritual practitioner. Under what umbrella are you a spiritual practitioner?
Okay, I've licensed through the Centers for Spiritual Living as a licensed spiritual practitioner, licensed spiritual counselor. Some of the different CSL communities call them licensed spiritual practitioner counselors. So, but I had been a certified addictions counselor in Illinois when I lived in Illinois, and I was that for 30 years. And then moved here a little over a year ago, and so I released that licensure. I'm not really doing that, but I just feel that all of that is part of who I am, and have been doing like coaching in some sense, some private coaching along the way.
Okay. So Center for Spiritual Living, is that under Ernest Holmes?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. So you are a practitioner of science of mind.
Correct. That was part of my teaching. Yeah, part of my
Okay.
journey. Mm-hmm. And
And
that's how I know Maureen Muldoon.
there you go. There you go.
Maureen and I were both licensed spiritual practitioners. She moved from California to Chicago, and we were practitioners together at the Centers for Spiritual Living in Chicago, which became the Bodhi Spiritual Center. And then she and I actually worked together. She was the director of youth and family, while I was the director of education there. So that's where we have, a foundation of our relationship with each other.
Okay, great, great. So over the years, you've worked with many people, it sounds like adults and youth even,
Yes,
or
right.
young adults.
Young adults and little kids, yeah.
Oh, okay. And in what seems to them in the moment to be a real crisis, and no doubt you have been in tough situations, as you've just said, in 5 months ago, losing your husband. Over the years, you've been in these tough situations, been counseling people in tough situations. What are your go-to practical passages from either it be Ernest Holmes' book, or practical passages that bring a shift in the mind to come to a place of peace?
Okay, I'm not sure if there are passages that I go to, but there are certain go-tos that maybe I've developed along the way. Number one has to do with breath. Pausing. Am I breathing? Am I holding my breath? How am I breathing? Taking a full breath in and then extending it out longer. So 2-to-1 breathing, or a go-to, which I've also taught, you know, some of the addicts that I worked with who would have great anxieties, was like box breathing. So it would be breathe in on a 4 count, hold on a 4 count, exhale on a 4 count, hold on a 4 count, inhale, and do that. And I would even teach them just going to open up a door, you know, put your hand on the doorknob, breathe in, turn the doorknob, hold, pull the door open, exhale, let go, hold, so that we could bring that into an actual physical thing. So breathing is one. Certain mantras that, you know, living in Chicago and driving in storms and knowing that I had to be someplace at a particular time to teach a class or whatever, and driving from the northern suburbs to get downtown, and should only be 12 miles, but it's going to take you 2 hours. A mantra of, I will get there in the divine and right time. I will get there in the divine and right time. Just cooling myself down and just allowing things to be. One of my go-tos is, especially when there's something that just feels so outside of what I can control. There is an intelligence much higher than my own that is guiding me. There's an intelligence much higher than my own that is guiding me. There's an intelligence much higher than my own that is guiding me. Those are my go-tos.
Love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, wow, that's good. That's good. I love how you bring in yoga. What discipline of yoga do you mainly incorporate as you teach?
You know, it's so funny. There were many years ago that I was considering, you know, going for yoga teacher training, and there was this friend of mine who had said, you know, I don't know that it's really your journey, it's your path. And so it's like, okay, I let go of it. But it's interesting, you know, when we're ready, like the right teacher arrives. And I had moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. And I thought that it was for one reason, but it actually turned out that it was for me to complete my yoga teacher training, because it was definitely a component of my spiritual path. And there was a center not far from where I lived. It was called Inner Peace Yoga, and it was a couple. And between the two of them, they probably had 60 years of yoga teacher training together. And they were from the Himalayan Institute. That's where they were, you know, raised through, and they were really steeped in yogic tradition and life and spirituality. And so I knew this was going to be part of my spiritual path. I didn't think that I'm going to teach yoga at any time. I just thought that this was going to be for my own spiritual journey. So it was hatha yoga, you know, the basic hatha yoga, but we looked at the 8 rungs. That's where my yoga teacher training comes from, that it's actually steeped in the spiritual tradition of yoga, that it's a life practice.
Mm-hmm. It's just not exercises to look good in your leotards and
no, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I remember
spiritual.
who was the teacher who would say, well, yeah, you can get a tight butt, but there are other things that are foundational with it before you get to the actual physical practices, you know, the yamas and niyamas. It's how is it that I'm walking in life, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like tuning your instrument from which the divine flows through.
Right, and that's one of the things that I would, that exact line of tuning your instrument is a line that I use a lot, as well as it's an inside job. I think that's going to be the epitaph, you know.
And then
I won't have a headstone, but it'll probably say it's an inside job. That how do we tune our instrument? You know, before we go out into the world, into the day, how do we tune our instrument? You know, those who are playing in the symphony, what do? They tune their instrument and then they tune to each other before they play. So before I go out into the world, into the day, how am I tuning this instrument, this body and mind? This is the instrument that I've been given to, you know, for this lifetime, to be on this planet. And so how do I tune it before I step into my day? What is my daily morning practice? What works for each of us is going to be different. So how do I tune it is really important.
Kate, can you talk about nutrition? Because it's also about how you fuel it as well.
Okay.
So maybe some of your go-to.
Yeah, interestingly, so how do we fuel it? But is it not just what we're eating? Well, how do we fuel all of our senses? What are we taking in as far as through our eyes, the media that we're taking in? What are we reading? What are we, you know, what are we consuming? Not just what we're eating. And yeah, we all are gonna, you know, there's certain things that are our go-to. I love chocolate. And I will break off tiny pieces and savor it in some sense. And I love cheese. That isn't the reason why I moved to Wisconsin, but I love good cheese, and I would slice it really, 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 really thin and just like savor it. And I can remember when Peter and I first got together, and I would get these, you know, we both love cheese, and I would these tiny thin slices, and he would like big chunk. It's like, what are you doing? That's such a big chunk. You don't need such a big chunk, just a tiny little piece. Yeah, how is it that we're eating, and what beverages are we taking in? Herbs. What are the scents that we're taking in, as far as, you know, essential smells? You know, how do they? How do we allow them to heal us? You know, so. Yeah, all the different things that we take in.
And of course, listening to music, podcasts, you know, that kind of stuff.
Beauty, okay. So how do we take beauty in? And interestingly, there was an article that a friend of mine wrote in, she's a minister, she's a UU minister here in the area. And she wrote an article in the paper that had to do with nourishing our senses. And she referred to a book that Thich Nhat Hanh had written along with someone else, Lillian Chung, Cheung. It was called Savor, and it has to do with, you know, what we take in, and, you know, and wellness and health. And they talk about, you know, wellness and health talks about that you need to have 30 minutes of exercise a day or whatever. But what they were talking about is 30 minutes of taking in beauty through our senses, to do that 30 minutes a day, and how that will assist in well-being, you know, what we're taking in as far as our eyes, our, you know, all of our senses. Steeping ourselves, you know, steeping our tea, steeping ourselves in beauty is important for what we're taking in too.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Just a little nod to our collective Catholic background. Joni was raised in the Catholic tradition. Rabina, I believe Lynn was as well.
Yeah.
I was. And Kate, you said that you were as well. Elementary school, high school, and college at the Catholic schools, as was I. So just a nod to the first day of Lent that we are celebrating today. I don't know if you'd say Happy Lent. Earlier this morning, I was thinking maybe I will go to the local Catholic church and get some ashes. I'm not sure.
Are they distributing them?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I'm so not in the regular realm of things. I can't imagine. I don't know. I guess I would have to, maybe with an outstretched hand with like a long ruler, From
You know,
the ashes you are, to dust you will return.
it was Ash Wednesday, you know, I did that for so many years, dragged my poor children, and we were dragged and all that. But the last couple of years, I've been doing it myself, you know, doing a ceremony. And I have such sage and all that. And I just said the prayers that I heard for years, and I did that. So I was going to do it later today, but I could have done it today. Or all else fails.
It's true that it's with the side of your thumb. Yeah, I don't know that you want to do that with a Sharpie. Right.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you for that. Just take matters into your own hands and
Well,
be your own mystic.
Well, not only that, but it is such one of the blocks of Catholicism that there had to be a man or a priest in between us and God. And I remember the first time I did that, it was out of laziness. I was like, it's like a day like this. I wasn't going to venture out and drive 20 minutes to church. And my father has stopped going to church after 85 years. He doesn't want to go to church physically anymore. So, you know, we would talk about these things, and we would laugh, and, you know, we'd make bread, and we realized how much it was ritual. And we kind of said, well, he would say to me, well, don't you think God is here with us? Why don't we just eat this chip and call it holy? And he meant it seriously, you know.
Wow.
And then it got to the point where we were saying, well, you can't go, so how about if we do the ash thing, you know? And we'd laugh about the ashes, and then we'd take a minute, and you're connecting. So the symbols for that generation were very important, but it broke his heart, with divorce, meaning he wasn't Catholic, and him and I would both go, let's go to, you know, Holy Communion. Who's going to know? And that's where we started to get a deeper connection to, it really only matters between our connection and God. And the rituals and the symbols and the churches and the priests are all there to be the guardrails or to help us, the training wheels. So after that, and after this man, what are you going to tell a 94-year-old? You don't go and get it, therefore you're not Catholic anymore? I mean, it didn't make sense to me, and I helped him. So we laugh about that all the time. We've had chips for hosts lately, and crackers. If it makes them smile, then what the heck, right?
Right.
So go ahead.
Well, segueing to a question, just acknowledging our Catholic background, can you talk a little bit about what your life was like before you met Ernest Holmes and the Center for Spiritual Life, Center for Spiritual Living?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the next question after, what was your life like before, and then I'll ask, what is it like now?
Okay. Well, just prior to finding Centers for Spiritual Living, I had been involved with Unity. I had been going to a Unity church. And that was right around the time that I was getting divorced, because there was this whole thing about Catholic and Catholicism that I wanted to be seeking something beyond what the Catholic Church had to offer, and that I wasn't really accepted in the Catholic Church. And going to a Catholic church was painful. I mean, I would cry when I would go to Catholic church, because there was this sense that I'm not accepted. I'm not to receive those sacraments. Not that I was a really religious person, but there was the sense that somehow someone is trying to put a roadblock between me and God. And I know that that's not true, but coming in here, I don't feel good. So then I was seeking other things outside of it. And so therefore, that's when I started going to Unity, and there was a great community on the north side of Chicago. It was called Our Home on Thome, because it was on Thome Street, and it was a Unity Church, and it was just a lovely community, and I was taking some of the different classes there, so kind of diving into New Thought, and just exploring and reading different teachings, as well as, you know, looking into different other books and such beyond what Catholicism had to teach. And there wasn't a lot, you know, I mean, I didn't really know the Bible very well growing up in Catholic Church. We didn't really study it. So I think that I was really diving more fully into a spiritual path. And then there were some folks that had told me about this new Centers for Spiritual Living. You might want to check it out. But interestingly enough, I had been invited to a New Year's Eve gathering. And there were all these people who were from the Centers for Spiritual Living that were at this New Year's Eve party. It was like, well, I've been thinking about this, and here it is, New Year's Eve, and I'm meeting all these people. So I guess I'm being guided to now check this out. And then after being there, it was like, okay, I'm going to start taking their classes, and then started taking the practitioner course and just really diving more fully into the teachings, as well as I found it more as an inside job of looking at myself, getting to know myself more fully. I thought that the practitioner training, especially the second year of it, or the first year of it, was almost like being in group therapy, because we were digging up these things about ourselves and the judgments or whatever that we had, and where does this come from, and how is this affecting how we're showing up in the world, and what do I really believe? And since then, I think it's just been a continuation, because just expanding on that. And I've, not that I'm Buddhist, but there's some wonderful teachers that I just love that are Buddhist, Pema Chodron and Thich Nhat Hanh, and I love Tara Brach and would listen to her podcasts or different books that people have written, and just that knowing that things are open at the top, and I am as well, and that there's certain learning, and I'm not going to just stay with the teaching, that the teaching brings me to a certain place of insight. And then expanding beyond that. And then the insight, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, then the insight burns away the teaching. And then we move to the next level, and we open up. And then sometimes I think there's a stepping back so that we can actually have a deeper perspective of what we've all done, you know, just in most things in life, that we're moving forward, that it's a dance, but then sometimes there's some step backward. And what I would often say to some of the addicts that I worked with, because they would struggle with, a relapse or a slip. And I would say, well, you know, sometimes we have to step back to get some momentum to step forward stronger. So can you look at it in that way, that you're not bad and wrong, that there's something that we slip back into something and then get our footing and then step forward with more momentum. And I think that that's true with everything,
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I have a question for you, Kate.
Sure.
What is your idea of enlightenment? And what would you say to someone who is trying to choose a tradition or rituals like Buddhism, Ernest Holmes, A Course in Miracles, Catholicism? What enlightenment, and what would you say to a beginner?
Okay, enlightenment. I believe that all of us have the opportunity to experience enlightenment in varied moments, that we each likely have had enlightened moments in our lives. We can't hang on to them because our attempt to hang on to them actually causes them to dissipate. But can we savor it? And that walking can be enlightenment. That breathing can be enlightenment. that there's various different ways that we can experience enlightenment. And maybe we've had a transcendent experience, or we've met someone who just is showing up at a just really higher vibration, and that can raise our vibration as well. And for anyone who's on the path, or is a beginner in some sense, I think I would talk with them about, well, what is attractive to you about this particular thing? And, dive into it and see what it has for you. And take what it has to offer. And if there's some things that don't quite resonate, you can leave the rest. So take what feeds you in some sense and allow yourself to expand, and to also know that as we commit to being on this journey, that there's going to be doubt that shows up. Doubt in what I believe, doubt about God, doubt about just about anything. And doubt is part of it. Doubt is part of the journey. And so can I be with that doubt, and can I allow it to open me up to something more? Because our foundational beliefs, and that's what I remember, with being a practitioner and teaching some of the classes with CSL, that the first class is called Foundations. And this whole idea of, well, what do I believe about God may be shattered. And that it was scary for people to come to this place of, oh my God, I don't really have a foundation to stand on. They're experiencing this sense of groundlessness, which can be frightening. That needs to be cleared away so that I can build a new foundation that's really pretty solid, that this is what I believe. And those beliefs are going to be challenged along the way.
Thank you. Mary?
Yeah, when you work with somebody who doesn't believe in God or is having problems with their belief in God, what do you say to them?
I've worked with atheists. I've worked with people that have no belief in God, but I talk with them about what they, what do they value in life? What do they believe about life? And how are they in alignment? How are their actions in alignment with those beliefs or not? How are they true to themselves or not? That's what we talk about.
Okay. Just to go back briefly, what is your spiritual practice each morning? Do you have one? And if you do, could you share it with us?
Yeah, my morning practice is just a seated meditation, probably for about 20 minutes. And and there are a couple of days a week that I meditate with some others. So we do, so it would be at least a 30-minute sit. But I try to do a 20-minute seated meditation, and then from that, then a prayer, my blessing for the day, my prayer for the day. So that's my way of tuning my instrument, as well as setting my intention in some sense for the day. And that's my go-to daily practice. And then there are times that I would have, like, say if I was, like I had a day of like a 9-to-5 work day, that at the end of that day that I would do probably a 12 to 15 minute meditation, especially being in the house here, and that you're not going to have that time of driving, because driving used to be a meditation. I would drive in silence. that, you know, like leaving work and heading home, that there was that transition time that could have been like a daily practice. And so driving in silence almost became a meditation. That there's different things that we can incorporate into our daily life that can be somewhat of a mindfulness practice, or you know, allowing ourselves to shift out of whatever's the spinning that's going on, and allowing ourselves to be grounded and present.
You mentioned mindfulness. Well, I'm going to ask you about that later. But what comes up right now is two things. One is, first, congratulations. I know that there's been a lot of transitions in your life in the last 6 months, but last week, to celebrate that you've ended a job and now you're beginning a new chapter, whatever that looks like for yourself. And then the other thing I wanted to say, going back, is I'd like to give you this moment to please share a loving thought or something that bursts out of your heart when you think of Peter.
Oh, well, we're here to play. That's what bursts out of my heart, because we were very playful with one another. He's with me always. He's in the pocket in my heart always. And I get little messages from him always. I'm never disconnected. So he always brings a smile to my face, just the thought of him. Yeah.
I just really wanted to see you smile, and I knew that would work. And I want to acknowledge Peter, who was your husband. He passed a very short while ago. It was in the fall of last year. And your explaining and sharing about that has been profound. And it goes along with the 4 speakings at Speakeasy, which we'll also include in this information on YouTube. So I really, like Mary said, it was very profound and helpful. So thanks.
Well, it stretched me, you know, initially when Maureen and I were talking about me participating in that, she had asked, and it was right around the time that Peter had died, and she said that, you know, that Speakeasy is going to be focusing on death in January. Would I be open to speak? And I think it was going to be one Sunday, because there were going to be a couple of other people that were going to be talking. And then in December, when we connected, she said, well, the 2 other people aren't going to be able to, and are we going to do this series? And I'm like, well, we'll figure it out, you know, but yeah, I'll be there with you. And then it turned out that she was going to be there with me. But I really felt that it stretched me. And I really felt that Peter was with me as I was preparing for it and giving the talks.
And there has been death in our community. Dove Fishman's lovely wife, Suzanne, has passed recently in the last couple of weeks. I helped one of our teachers' very best friends, celebration of life. And my father's 94. You know, he'll tell you he's going to live, you know, another 10 years, which is always possible. But, you know, the ability to weave the meaning of life through talking about the transition of death helps to remind that there's little transitions every day. The difference is we always have the choice to approach it with fear or with love. And so again, your talks were very helpful, and we'll include that. Mary, do you have something next?
Yeah. Kate, what keeps you light and having fun right now? I mean, you've just, I don't want to frame this question in light of the fact that you've just lost your beloved 5 months ago, but I guess that's part of your life right now. So what keeps you in joy and happiness right now?
You know, there's varied things. And, you know, when we're grieving, we're not necessarily just always in this overwhelm of sadness, that there's joys and sorrows, you know, there's this continual ebb and flow in life. And I've had some absolutely wonderful belly laughs recently, which is just so healing, you know. I'll relate this story. I just could not stop laughing. So it was my meditation sangha was together, and one of the people in my sangha, she's a minister, and she was talking about, she was going to be giving her talk on Sunday, and she was bringing up St. Paul. And I know a lot of people have kind of like prickliness around St. Paul, and she had said, and I'm not sure if someone was like an anthropologist or whatever, but she had read somewhere that someone was describing him as being, you know, like a short, ruddy guy, kind of ruddy. Maybe he had red hair. I'm probably going to start laughing now. And so he was like the Simmons, what's his name? Oh my God, I'm just blanking on him.
The Simmons guy who does the exercise.
Yes.
Something Simmons.
So she described him as that.
Richard Simmons.
She goes, just, you know, St. Paul, the Richard Simmons of, and I just could not stop laughing. It was like a belly laugh and I just couldn't stop laughing because I'm picturing Richard Simmons with the, you know, those shorty shorts and this apostle going after, you know, telling people, but anyway, you had to be there. And
yeah.
But these types of things show up, and life just brings us different things that are humorous, that are funny, or someone is sharing a story. And it's being in the present moment. Can we be in the present moment with whatever and just allow it to be, and not being in the spinning of our mind and going to what it is that we're wanting that's not here, not focusing on what I can't have, focusing on what's present.
I read once that death or the loss of a loved one was the closest that the rest of us get to being in the present moment. You know, that, and I experienced that with helping this family that I didn't know. I mean, wow. There were moments of uncontrolled grief and tears, and then there was moments of laughter. And it was much more pronounced for me because I was trying to hold space for them and still needed their technical help. And I realized it was what a lesson it was for me. And you know, and your reminder of belly laughs, as well as knowing there will be times when you'll be washed over with grief and tears at another time, and you won't know when that's coming. Something will ignite that.
In the same, it can be within 5 minutes of each other.
That's true.
One can ignite the other, you know. And in fact, just within, you know, this time of, you know, we've been in such a strange time, this eclipse that we've been under with the pandemic, as well as, you know, what's been going on politically in our country and the world. And I remember being in such a state of joy around certain things, as far as, you know, and then the next moment realizing, oh, you're not here to celebrate with me.
Yeah.
And then there's a flood of sorrow. But, you know, it's this, just like with the breath, or like with the waves on the water, how there's the in wave and the out wave, that's continual. So
we have about 5 minutes, Mary. What do you think? We have 2 women on this call or Zoom, Rubina in Mexico and Lynn, and they have profound
in Colorado.
In Colorado, thank you.
Yeah.
And they have profound experiences with death of close members and their families. And I wondered if in 5 minutes or so, if either of them had a thought or a question. I mean, I didn't mean us to turn into the death thing, but we did Death Cafe last night. You know, there was everything. It's on my mind a little bit, but if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to share with Kate, we invite you now. And this is Lynn Johnson, who's from ACIM Gather Pellet Talk. Hi, Lynn, welcome. Uh-oh, can't hear you.
You're muted, Lynn.
The mute is off, but there's an audio thing. Yeah, she says. Yeah, it's still not hearing. You're off mute, but there's no audio.
System. How about
There you go.
Okay, yeah, just have to reset. So yeah, I was saying it's been a wonderful interview, and thank you so much, Kate, for your lovely, lovely answers, and of course, Mary and Joni. And yeah, I having had, you know, so many people around me die, and you know, family members and friends, you know, I think about it as if, you know, if they were in the other room, I wouldn't wonder where they were and worry and be sad. If they were in another town, if they were living, you know, someplace else, maybe I haven't seen them for years, and they're now they're gone, and you know, how do I think any differently about them? They're still as here in my mind as they were when they were here. So, you know, I can just walk into another room and there they are. And that's really how I see it. They've just gone into another place. And,
Lovely.
you know, you know, they're not gone from me, and they're always here. So, it's a joyful way to think about it. And, then you start thinking, gee, I don't really think too much about most of the people I know. So why would I be like verklempt when they're not here? And of course, if it's a husband, that's a different thing, because they're with you all the time. But I know there were times when they were at work and you didn't grieve, you don't know, oh, where is he? You know, it's the same thing now. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Is Robina, do you have a comment or?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. And Kate, thank you very much for this interview, and both the interviewers doing such a great job. I want to ask you, you know, I feel my father's presence, and I chuckle because he was for lack of terminology, a smartass. And I remember some of his little comments that make me chuckle to this day. But my first husband committed suicide. What are your thoughts around suicide?
I've known people who have committed suicide, and I've known that it was the way that they saw for the pain to end, because it was so painful to be alive. And I've known, you know, adolescents. I mean, I've known a spectrum of different people to commit suicide. I don't think that we need to be in any space of judgment around it, because that judgment actually deepens a certain idea of separation between us and them. Just knowing that their human experience was very painful, and this was a way that they thought was out. And oftentimes, those of us that are left behind are left with certain levels of guilt and shame, and thinking that we should have seen something, we could have done something, we could have prevented this. And what I know is that if someone is really determined to commit suicide, there isn't anything that we can do to prevent it. This is their choice. And nothing is outside of God. This is what I know.
I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Thank you, Kate. I do too. I do too. I think it's he was in a lot of pain, and that's the only way he knew how to take care of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Right. We can't fix we can't fix things for anyone, and we so wish that we could. We so wish that we could blink them through it, and we can't. We're all on our own journey. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we can't do the work for them. That's
Right.
what I found. All this, we can't. You know, I can do some of the work for me, and that's the journey. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
We're coming to a close, and I know that Mary's going to pray us out. I just want to remind everyone, and Lynn, that Kate will be giving me all of her website, her emails, and we will be posting some of her suggestions for how to talk with people with that may have lost someone. Also, we have the Death Cafe once a month at Speakeasy, which I'll share. I know it wasn't what we planned, but I think we weaved it pretty well, Mary. And if you have some final words while I cue up the song, which is one of Kate's favorites, would you pray us out, Mary?
Sure. So, Kate, I just wanted to be clear that you do counseling still right now, one-on-one coaching and counseling.
I do coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a focus? Is it addiction oriented, or is it just
No,
general life counseling?
It isn't necessarily addiction focused. I think that we all have addiction in some ways. We're addicted to our thoughts. And so assisting people in transitions of different types is, I suppose,
Great.
the focus.
And maybe we can at least say what your website is.
Okay, well, there's some, Make a Mindful Mark was the website that my husband Peter and I had together, and so much of it has to do with his artwork, but there is something about me on there.
Okay.
And I can be reached at Kate at Make a Mindful Mark. He and I were doing work together of doing retreats together, facilitating retreats, and the retreat was mindful play and tools for resilience. So that's some of the work that I wish to move forward with at this point.
Wow. Okay, so that is makeamindfulmark.com.
Yes.
Okay, makeamindfulmark.com. You can be reached at. Kate Miller, it has been such a pleasure to connect with you. Joni, your questions, amazing. Thank you for this time. It was really beautiful. So I'll end with this passage in A Course in Miracles. And thank you so much, Rabina and Lynn, for being here to round out this discussion, a circle around Kate, sitting, like Maureen says, knee to knee, eye to eye, and all learning and loving with each other. Thank you. So I'll just end with this one passage of in A Course in Miracles, lesson 135, paragraph 18, and bring us back to our own inner self, reflecting gently on what we've just heard and how it has affected us, and coming to that peaceful, quiet place within. I present these words. What could you not accept if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good? Perhaps you have misunderstood her plan, for she would never offer pain to you, but your defenses did not let you see his loving blessing shine in every step you ever took. While you made plans for death, he led you gently to eternal life. And those are words from paragraph 18, lesson 135. And I thank you again.
Have a beautiful day. And I'm going to turn this mic over to you, Lynn. And I appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful get to know you, Kate. And thank you again, Mary and Joni.
Thank you,
this
Lynn.
wonderful program. I'm so grateful that you guys are doing this. It's so cool. All right. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you again to ACIM Gather and Pal Talk.
Thank you. Love
I
you
love
guys.
you all.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
They left. It's okay.
Okay. Turn off the recording.
Oh, yeah, stop recording.